Hi, and welcome to Best in Tesla. Stellantis sales in the US have collapsed. Their profits are down 50%, and their only focus now is on how to get rid of all the cars that are piling up at their dealerships. They have completely lost focus on the future and are only focusing on the short-term fixes to try to stay alive. This will not end well. And the most stupid thing is, the trouble they're in right now in the US are self-inflicted. So let's check it all out and let's dive right in. So it seems like we are seeing the collapse of the legacy automakers playing out right now in front of us. It's only weeks ago that Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares was out saying this: "The automotive industry is kind of a survival mode. We are beyond fear. We cannot complain, we cannot hesitate, and we have to concentrate our efforts to stay alive. To stay alive, we need to achieve cost parity between electric cars and thermal cars. But another chapter opens here. We operate in a geographical region emitted by chaos and it's difficult to make predictions. Governments have decided to reduce purchase incentives, and this is holding back the market. I would say it is not that difficult to predict the future. The BEVs is the car of the future. We see that already done many places here in Europe, in Norway, and Denmark is speeding up towards that even faster. Denmark is going from 5 to 60% BEV market share in only 4 years, whereas Norway took 7 years for that. This is speeding up, and the customers has already spoken in most of the world, and the US will of course follow. So that Stellantis still don't know which way to go is quite telling and quite scary. But like most other legacy automakers, they are finding this shift incredibly difficult, also because of their dealerships. But now we are seeing a new report from CNBC that is showing that Stellantis is collapsing in the US. Their profits are down 50%. CNBC just made a report about Stellantis, that is the 5th largest car manufacturer in the world, that is now openly talking about the huge trouble they're in.
It is an understatement to say that H1 2024 results were disappointing and humbling,
as their sales have collapsed in the US, and as a result the stock price has done the same. Since March this year, the stock has dropped 50% in value, and at the same time Stellantis has dropped almost 50% of its profits in the US. Like this dealer owner said that Stellantis has 900 dealers in the US that are losing money.
That's caustic. We have 900 dealers in the country that are actually losing money, and a bunch that are really close to it.
And there is no longer any talk about the EVs and the future. The only thing they are talking about right now is how to get rid of all that inventory that is piling up. And Stellantis brand cars are the ones with the cars sitting the longest on the dealership's lot. And as you can see here on this chart from CNBC, the one with the shortest time at the dealerships is Toyota with just about 30 days. But Tesla does not have dealerships, so they are not on this list, but Tesla has an average of 16 days of inventory. So Tesla is the one in the US doing the best when it comes to days of inventory. So that is also something to keep in mind when you hear about doom and gloom for Tesla in the mainstream media about Tesla's sales in the US. But I do disagree a bit with the notion from the automotive expert in the CNBC report here that says that they think Stellantis' hybrid powertrain that can be made into both gasoline cars, electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids is a winning strategy.
However, Stellantis' new Stella platform can accommodate gas-burning internal combustion vehicles, hybrids, and EVs. When Stellantis introduced the strategy, its inclusion of 3 different powertrains seemed like a waste at a time when EVs were expected to rapidly take over the market.
And I think that flexibility to kind of insulate Stellantis a little bit from the pace of electrification, that's going to be a real benefit in the upcoming years. And what we're seeing right now is kind of a tactical issue, something they'll need to work through. So I think on the strategic side, Stellantis has done a very good job, or as good a job as an automaker can in these challenging times. But they took their eye off the ball in North America, and it will take probably another 6 to 12 months to correct that.
I personally think this is a losing strategy, as they will not have very efficient electric cars. And sure, the EV adoption in the US might not be as fast as in Europe and especially in China, but I expect it is going to accelerate, and very fast, over the next couple of years. And then Stellantis is going to sit with an EV that can't really compete with the competition, especially not on cost, as it is not a pure EV platform. They will not be profitable on an EV platform with this mixed platform, if you ask me. I think this might help them short term in the next 2 years or so, but then the decline will happen fast after that, as Stellantis will not be able to compete with the other pure EV platforms on the market. But of course, the sentiment that the electric vehicles are a losing strategy is also voiced by the dealerships.
Upcoming products are too heavy on EVs for Kelleher's taste.
I think either Mr. Tavares or somebody has got to take a more aggressive strategy on what our product plans are and understand that electric, if it's an immediate product plan, is going to be a complete failure.
So I think Stellantis might be doing some short-term adjustment here, but since Stellantis themselves and their dealers in the US are not focusing on the car of the future, the BEV, I personally think this is only a temporary little band-aid on a big open wound. I think eventually Stellantis, that is a fusion of companies in trouble under the 2018 financial crisis, is going to go bankrupt once again. Maybe try to make another fusion. Maybe this time with the leader in the EV race, GM. No, they will not merge with Tesla, as Stellantis has nothing to offer Tesla. But in another couple of years, GM might find themselves in the same kind of trouble that Stellantis find themselves in today. And the saga of the old legacy automakers in trouble and merging together will continue. And the value of the dealerships are also dropping, as Stellantis dealerships used to be valued at a 5 to 5.5 times earnings to now only be 1 to 2 times earnings, depending on the dealership location. So as I talked about many times before, some of all of this assets that people like to tell me is not debt for the companies, well, if that asset loses the most of its value, it's no longer a very nice asset, is it? Just like the old outdated ice factories are no longer a good asset, as they have to spend billions of dollars to retool them, as I made a whole video about, that Volkswagen have to spend over $100 billion, actually closer to $130 billion, to retool all their factories globally if they want to have any chance of making 9 million electric vehicles at some point. Then that asset will also become a burden and no longer a great asset for the company. And just like we see Toyota do now with their investment of $1.3 billion in retooling their already existing factory in Kentucky that was supposed to build the next big EV SUV in 2025, but as so much else from the legacy automakers, that has of course been pushed out. Now they're aiming for 2026. But anyway, it looks like Stellantis is in big trouble in the US, so let's keep an eye on them over the next 6 months or so and see how this develops. But going from talking about the EV strategy and how to make this shift to now only talking about getting rid of their inventory sounds like a very bad situation for Stellantis, because now they have to spend billions of dollars trying to get rid of their inventory piling up at dealers, but that is not dealing with the underlying problem here, that nobody wants to buy their cars in the first place, and Stellantis has priced themselves out of the market by raising their prices of their vehicles to make some great profits in 2023, but that has now left them with stranded vehicles and sitting with an uncompetitive car against the competition.
In the middle of the merger, the coronavirus pandemic hit. The factory shutdowns, supply chain disruptions, and materials shortages severely constrained supply. Dealers made up for the lack of inventory by raising prices on the cars they could sell. Customers paid, and dealers made profits.
Now, everybody knew that this was a short-term situation, that eventually people would go back to work, supply chains would correct, and vehicle profits would go back down towards where they were.
As the pandemic rolled on, automakers started raising prices too. Stellantis did it much more aggressively than others.
So a Jeep Wrangler, which used to be a pretty, basic vehicle, very affordable vehicle, increased 30+% during the pandemic. That's more than their comparable vehicles did.
And Stellantis has done this with their ICE cars today. Even though Stellantis CEO was the one that back in 2021 said that the EV cost burden is beyond the limits for automakers. Let's just hear this little clip from him.
What has been decided is to impose on the automotive industry electrification that brings 50% additional cost against a conventional vehicle. So we have to digest 50% of additional cost. There is no way we can transfer 50% of additional cost to the final consumer, because most part of the middle classes will not be able to pay for those new car sales. So we lose the customer, we lose the customer base, and then we have to shrink the company, which is going to create, of course, social issues.
So quite funny to hear him say that they cannot increase the prices so much of EVs because then nobody wants to buy them. But they have already done this to themselves just on their ICE business, added on so much on the price that they now just sit on dealer lots and nobody wants to buy them. So this is really a self-inflicted wound that they have given themselves. And that is all before they really get into the EV business that Carlos Tavares was complaining about was going to be too expensive for the automakers to bear. But Tavares doesn't seem to realize that Tesla is profitable on EVs, and they have EVs that are way below the average selling price in the US, that is about $48,000, and way below what Stellantis' average selling price is at their dealers, like the one here in CNBC's report, that is closer to $60,000. No wonder that people don't want to buy their inferior ICE cars when you can get something like, the Model Y Performance for what Stellantis dealerships average price is, and then still have about $8,000 to $9,000 left to spare for charging. And if you can charge at home overnight for about 20 cents per kilowatt hour, you will have enough money for about 260,000 kilometers or 160,000 miles. And that is without talking about the savings you will do on maintenance as well. So you will get a safer car, an overall better car in my opinion, that is faster and quicker with the latest software, full self-driving features and so on, for less money than your average Stellantis branded car in the US, with 160,000 miles included. And even though Carlos says you can't make money on EVs, well, Tesla actually earns money on that much cheaper and better option of a car that Tesla offers. So looking at it like this, it's not surprising that Stellantis is not selling their cars, as they got greedy after the pandemic and kept turning the prices of their cars up, and now sit with their uncompetitive cars with an uncompetitive price. So now throwing billions at the problem of getting their inventory down will not solve the problem of people not wanting to buy the cars. They have to lower their prices and come out with new, fresh models and make a total shift in their mindset about EVs as well, or they will simply just end up being left behind when this shift to EVs accelerate in the US as it has done in China and Europe. So Carlos might be right. It is beyond the limits of the company. But that was 3 years ago he said that. And they have gone nowhere since. They are only in a worse position now. Since Carlos has made that comment, well, Stellantis sales has collapsed in the US, and Tesla has doubled its production and sales and introduced the Model Y that became the best-selling car in the world in those 3 years, and Tesla has become more profitable selling EVs than Stellantis is selling their ICE cars. Yeah, Stellantis seems more like a deer frozen in the headlights. And the headlights that is about to hit them and run them over belongs to Tesla. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and
Be nice.